Yes, a very welcome everyone. So today we are here with an objective of first of all announcing a new batch for public administration optional and some basic information first regarding the batch, and after which we are going to continue with our discussion. So the first things that you should know here is that this batch is for optional. That is, it is for Public Service Commission, specifically the Union Public Service Commission. And in Union Public Service Commission, anyone who is looking for an option, public administration is one of the optionals, and this batch is regarding it. Secondly, this batch is in English medium. It's not a bilingual batch. It is not a Hindi medium batch. The medium of communication, the medium of teaching is English. Okay. Thirdly, what would be the time period in which the batch is likely to start? So the batch is going to start in the mid of this month, that is the mid of June itself. Okay. So some basic information before we start discussing on optionals. Remember, the discussion that we are going to have today is primarily going to be in English, as the batch is of the English medium. Okay. So today's discussion, yes, a very good evening to all of you. And I would request everyone to be asking questions related to optionals, asking questions related to UPSC optionals. I will not be giving any details regarding any other topics or any other batches, because I don't have that every information. Okay. So yes, a very good evening to all of you. So what exactly is the objective that we have today? Our objective is that we discuss certain ideas of the optional paper. That is, if you are an individual who has right now either decided that you are going to take up public administration as your optional, you are going to benefit from today's discussion. And anyone who has any confusion related to optionals, whether it is how to choose an optional, whether it is about whether public administration should be your option, so this session is also going to benefit you as well. Okay. So what did I say? The objective is to look at two primary things. First, look at optional paper. That means we are going to take up a discussion on what is the importance of optional, what is the importance of optional, we will be talking about this discussion. And along with this discussion, I will also be discussing what are the parameters to choose any optional. What are the parameters to choose any optional? So I will be talking about, that whatever optionals you are considering for your civil services examination, what are certain things that you should keep in mind before finally deciding that, okay, this is the optional that you are going for. Okay. So that discussion we are going to have. And secondly, we are also going to discuss public administration. We are also going to discuss public administration, and in this discussion we are going to talk about what is the content of public administration optional, how should you begin your public administration optional preparation, how should you begin your public administration optional paper preparation, what are the initial do's and don'ts, and finally what should be your expectation from public administration. Okay, what should be your expectation from public administration optional? So this is basically the two things that I'm going to talk about. Clear hai? I hope everyone who is who has joined live, I hope all of you have this very objective of of gaining some insights relating to optional papers. Okay, and primarily most of you who are here, you are also considering public administration as your optional, so that is also something that you have to focus upon. Okay, let's move on. Let's move to this particular part, optional discussion. Let's start with this. Let's start with optional discussion, and obviously I will also be entertaining questions. Okay, I will also be entertaining questions that you have, but those questions that I would be talking about, I will be discussing that at the end of our discussion. Okay, so approximately an hour or so, करीब करीब 1 घंटे का discussion है. So we will be taking up in an hour, after an hour. If you have any questions, you can do what? You can ask me. You can ask me. Okay. So optional discussion. First of all, what is the importance of optional paper? Okay. What is the importance of optional paper? This is the first question. This is the first question that we should be doing what? We should be analyzing this. This is the first question that we should be analyzing. So what is the importance of optionals? See, first of all, when you appear for UPSC examination, after your decision of appearance, there is only one thing, there is only one decision that you make, which is what? The decision that you make is that you are going to decide which optional you are going to opt for. Which optional you are going to opt for, because everything else, whether it is your prelims examination, whether it is your mains examination, all the other papers are common for everyone, and you don't have any discretion, any choice related to all the other papers. The only choice that you have, the only decision that you take is where you have to do what? Where you have to choose the optional paper. Where you have to do what? Where you have to choose the optional paper. And because it's the only decision that you make, you have to choose it with proper rational analysis and then finally take a decision. Because this is one of the fundamental mistakes that we make. What is that mistake? The mistake is that we consider, because the optional paper has 500 marks, 500 marks in comparison to general studies. In comparison to general studies, the GS paper, the general studies paper has 1000 marks, which is allocated. Okay, 1000 marks is allocated to general studies in your mains examination. In your mains examination, the marks that is allocated to your optionals is 500. Okay, there is no optional paper in your prelims examination in UPSC. The optional paper comes at the second stage. The second stage is where you are appearing for mains examination. Okay, so remember this. Now, because the marks that is allocated to your optional is 500 and the marks that is allocated to your general studies is 1000, so what happens is that we generally consider that because that is the case, so optional is not as important. Optional is not as important as general studies. Why? क्यों? क्योंकि जनरल स्टडीज के लिए 1000 marks है, which is double that of the optional paper. So because we consider that this is, because we consider this, so we feel that somehow the optional paper is less important. तो क्या फर्क पड़ता है अगर कोई भी ऑप्शनल चूज कर लो? This is something that happens. क्या होता है? This is something that happens. Okay. So that is one of the fundamental mistakes. Why? Because when it comes to your general studies paper, in general studies paper, the maximum marks that you are likely to score is somewhere around 400. You are likely to score somewhere around 400. If you are scoring 400 in your general studies, if you are scoring 400 in your general studies, it will be considered considerably good. It is an exceptional score. If you are scoring 400 in your general studies paper, it is exceptionally good. That means in totality, you are scoring 40% here. You are scoring 40% of the total marks, and the syllabus of general studies is considerably vast. जनरल स्टडीज का सिलेबस काफी बड़ा है. जनरल स्टडीज का सिलेबस काफी बड़ा है in comparison to your optional paper. Now, what is the score that you are likely to get in your optionals? If you prepare well and if you score well here, you will find that you can score in your optional out of 500 anything between 275 to 300. This marks, which is 55 to 60% of your total score. This is something which you can do what? Which you can easily score in your optional paper. ये जनरल स्टडीज में नहीं होता है. You cannot think that you are likely to score 600 in your general studies, है ना? You cannot score 600 in your general studies because 40%, 45% is a very good exceptional score. You don't get more than that. उससे ज्यादा आपको मार्क्स स्कोर ही नहीं किया जाता है. But it is very much possible for you to score what? For you to score 275 to 300 in your optional paper, which means 55 to 60% can easily be scored in your optional paper. Which means if you compare what? If you compare the effort that you have to put in your general studies, अगर आप अपने जनरल स्टडीज के सिलेबस और जितनी मेहनत आपको जनरल स्टडीज के पेपर को कंप्लीट करने में लगाया जाता है, आप जितना मेहनत वहां लगाते हो, एंड if you compare it with that of your optional, you will find that there is a huge difference. You don't have to stress so much in your optional paper, but in your general studies there are so many things that you have to read. Okay, so in comparative importance, what you have to understand, if you take all these factors into consideration, हर factor को अगर consideration में लेकर आते हो तो आपको यह समझ में आता है कि जो मार्क्स आपको एलोकेट किया जा रहा है इन योर जनरल स्टडीज इन कंपैरिजन टू योर एफर्ट वो कम है, एंड द मार्क्स दैट यू कैन स्कोर इन योर ऑप्शनल इन कंपैरिजन टू द एफर्ट दैट यू पुट इन वो ज्यादा है. आप किसी भी ऐसे टॉपर को नहीं देखोगे जिसने मार्क्स ऑप्शनल में कम स्कोर किया हो. You will not get any such example, which means scoring well in your optionals is a mandatory phenomena to get into services. अगर आपको services चाहिए तो आपको optional का score high रखना ही पड़ेगा. If you score well in your optionals, only then you qualify. Otherwise, you don't. Otherwise, you don't. This is the importance of optional, which we generally do what? We generally dilute its importance. We generally consider कि ठीक है 500 marks ही है ना, we have general studies उसमें 1000 marks. By the time you realize what I have just said, you will find that it's already been 1 year or 2 years of your preparation, and that is when it becomes more and more difficult to change your option. So what does that mean? It means that before choosing any optional, I will take a rational, well informed decision. Yani, what did I say? With the understanding of this idea, what is my conclusion? My conclusion is that choosing an optional always requires a rational and a well-informed decision. A well-informed decision. A rational decision, a well-informed decision. And why am I saying this? मैं ऐसा क्यों कह रहा हूं? Because come to the second part of our discussion. What was the second part? What are the parameters to choose any optional? Let's try and deliberate upon this. Let's discuss this. See, the first thing that you have to remember is that not all optionals are made for everyone. Not all optionals are made for everyone. What you have to understand is that optionals जो होते हैं ना, every optional has a separate requirement. हर optional paper का अलग requirements होता है. And because every optional has a separate requirement, what you need to judge yourself on is whether you fulfill that requirement or not. क्या आप उस ऑप्शनल के रिक्वायरमेंट को फुलफिल करते हो? If you fulfill the requirement, that is your optional, you can choose it. But if you do not fulfill that requirement, and you still choose that optional, what will be the end result? The end result would be that you, after, after maybe a year, maybe 2 years, after writing maybe 1-2 mains examination, you feel, now you realize that the optional is the reason why I am not getting through. ऑप्शनल की वजह से आपको रियलाइज होगा कि ऑप्शनल की वजह से जो मेरा सिलेक्शन हो जाना चाहिए था, वो सिलेक्शन इस वजह से नहीं हो पा रहा है क्योंकि मैंने गलत ऑप्शनल चूज कर लिया है. एंड दैट इज द रीजन व्हाई आई हैव टोल्ड यू दिस. What you need to understand is not every optional is made for everyone, because every optional has separate requirements. हर ऑप्शनल पेपर के रिक्वायरमेंट्स, उनके डिमांड्स अलग होते हैं. However, we can classify optionals into 3 categories. ठीक है, we can do what? We can categorize optionals into 3. What are those categories? First, these are the 3 categories in which we can classify all the optionals to be. First category, which is, as I have mentioned, objective, which means we are talking about generally those optionals which fall under the category of sciences. ये वो ऑप्शनल पेपर है जो साइंस रिलेटेड है, लाइक फिजिक्स, केमिस्ट्री, बायोलॉजी, zoology, botany, and so on. Now, not everyone can choose this optional. Why? Because you cannot, if you have not read physics maybe till graduation and post graduation days, if you have not specialized, you don't have a specialized degree in physics, chemistry, mathematics, zoology, botany, and so on, you cannot choose this optional. You cannot choose this optional. However, if you have a degree in it and you are very comfortable with it, क्योंकि यहां पर चीजें ऑब्जेक्टिव होती है, यहां पर इंटरप्रिटेशन करने की कोई जरूरत नहीं है, क्वेश्चंस स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड होते हैं, एंड द रिक्वायरमेंट इज दैट यू हैव द नेसेसरी कॉन्सेप्ट्स. अगर वैसा है तो आप इस ऑप्शनल को चूज कर सकते हो. इफ यू हैव रेड फिजिक्स, केमिस्ट्री, बायोलॉजी और एनी ऑफ दिस एंड यू आर वेरी कंफर्टेबल विद दैट टॉपिक till your post graduation days, आपने post graduation किया and you are very comfortable with it, you can go for sciences as your optional. But the limitation here is that not all of us belong to sciences. We do not belong to sciences. Okay, and because we do not belong to sciences, so for most of us this is not a choice that we can make. हम ये choice नहीं कर सकते हैं क्योंकि हम में से ज्यादातर लोग सोशल साइंसेस बैकग्राउंड से आते हैं, एंड दैट बिकम्स दैट इज अ लिमिटेशन फॉर अस. ठीक है, नाउ कम्स दिस साइड, दैट इज द सब्जेक्टिव साइड. सो हियर वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट लिटरेचर सब्जेक्ट्स और दो सब्जेक्ट्स वेयर you require communication and you feel you are very good at it, है ना. यहां पर सब्जेक्टिविटी बहुत है, इंटरप्रिटेशन बहुत है, एंड यू फील यू आर कंफर्टेबल विद दैट. यानी आप ऐसा आंसर लिखना जानते हो वेयर वॉट एवर यू राइट, you are able to communicate very well to the examiner. एंड दैट इज वेयर जनरली जो लैंग्वेज और लिटरेचर सब्जेक्ट्स हैं लाइक इंग्लिश, हिंदी, no and other literature subjects that are there, they are part of this. Clear? But again, what is the problem? Again, the problem is that not all of us are comfortable with this idea and we cannot choose this, है ना? Not all of us can choose this. So not all of us can go for English literature, Hindi literature, or any other literature subjects that are there, or for that matter any other language paper that is there. We cannot go for it. Okay, now comes certain subjects which are in between. That means if we talk about a combination of objectivity plus subjectivity, so in this case you have certain optional papers like PSIR, public administration, geography, etc. These are now your optional papers. Clear? So if you cannot choose this, what is remaining is these optionals. What are remaining is these options, that is whether you can go for geography, PSIR, public administration or not. However, again, as I've already informed you, our decision to choose an optional will be a rational decision and it will be a well-informed decision. Now, when we say our decision will be a well-informed decision, what does that mean? Well-informed. Dekho, what I have to do is, when I am in the process of taking this decision, जब मैं इस प्रोसेस में हूं कि मैं ये डिसीजन लेने वाला हूं कि मुझे कौन सा ऑप्शनल चूज करना है, जनरली हम एज एस्पिरेंट्स के पास कुछ स्पेसिफिक शॉर्ट लिस्टेड ऑप्शनल्स होते हैं. कुछ स्पेसिफिक शॉर्ट लिस्टेड ऑप्शनल्स होते हैं. लाइक some of us may have thought कि okay, I will choose between sociology, public administration, PSIR, or I will choose between anthropology, sociology and some other option. That means we have shortlisted some of them. We have done what? We have shortlisted some of the optionals. What I need to do is I need to have a detailed analysis of these, and to analyze that what are the things that we are going to take. Two things. First, I will look at the I will do what? I will look at the syllabus of the optional. I am going to look at the syllabus of that very optional. So I will not make a decision before looking at the syllabus, whether I'm choosing for public administration, any optional. It can be public administration, it cannot be public administration. But we have to be what? We have to take a well-informed decision. And for that, what I require is I would need a syllabus. So, download the syllabus from the internet. You can avail the syllabus. And accordingly, what you need to do is read the syllabus very carefully. Read, don't just give an overview. Read it. Read the syllabus very carefully, the topics that are there, the subtopics that are there, and do it for all the optionals that you are considering. All the options that you are considering, do it for all the optionals. Now, what will be the positive of it? The positive of it would be that if you have ever read that very topic, maybe ऐसा हो सकता है कि during your graduation days आपने ग्रेजुएशन में PSIR पढ़ा है या सोशियोलॉजी पढ़ा है या for that matter public administration पढ़ा है. So if you are familiar with the syllabus, you will get to know what is the content. What is the content? If you are not very familiar with the subject, you will still have a good view. No, you will still have a good view of what exactly the syllabus is about. You will get a good view. Okay, this particular optional, these are the content of the syllabus. Okay. Now, when I say well informed decision, you also can take the help of PYQs, that is previous year questions. What you can do is you can take the help of PYQs. Last 3 to 4 years of UPSC PYQs, you can choose from them. Look at those. What is the syllabus of it? What is the questions that have been asked? ठीक है. Now, इससे आपको एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट फायदा होगा. As I said, not every optional can be chosen by everyone. Every individual has specific skills. Every optional requires a specific skill. क्या कहा मैंने ये कहा कि आपके पास अपने स्किल्स हैं, आपके पास अपने स्किल्स हैं, और हर ऑप्शनल को एक स्पेसिफिक स्किल की जरूरत है. किसी ऑप्शनल में लिखना बहुत अच्छा चाहिए, किसी ऑप्शनल में इंटरप्रिटेशन बहुत अच्छी चाहिए, किसी ऑप्शनल में कोरिलेशन बहुत बेहतर चाहिए. और व्हेन यू गो थ्रू PYQs, तो आप अपने स्किल और उस ऑप्शनल के रिक्वायरमेंट को मैच कर सकते हो. क्या कर सकते हो? अपने स्किल और उस ऑप्शनल के रिक्वायरमेंट को मैच कर सकते हो. और वो कैसे होगा? नाउ, when you look at the PYQs, you will get to know whether the questions that are asked, are they asked straightforward, or whether the questions that are asked, these are statement based questions, or the questions that are being asked, are these questions indirect in nature. You get to know that very idea when you analyze the PYQs. मुझे पता है कि अभी तक क्योंकि आपने उस चीज को कभी पढ़ा नहीं है, तो PYQ एनालिसिस करना आसान नहीं होगा. बट आपको बहुत डिटेल्ड एनालिसिस की जरूरत नहीं है. What you need to do is you need to just correlate the topics. You need to see, okay, what are the topics that are there and the questions that are being asked. Are those questions similar or are those questions indirect by nature? इसे समझने के लिए आपको कोई परेशानी नहीं होगी. You will not have a lot of problems in understanding that. And that is what I want. That because I said we will, while we are taking an optional, choosing an optional, we will take a well-informed decision, because this is the only decision that UPSC allows its aspirants to take. The only decision that UPSC allows the aspirants to take. Otherwise, everything is pre-decided. Your prelims is pre-decided, your mains is pre-decided, except for the optional paper that you have to choose. So we take a well-informed decision, and therefore we will take up the question paper analysis that is there. And we will also take up a rational decision. And what do I mean when I say rational decision? What I mean by saying a rational decision is that we are never going to take a decision based on some faulty parameters. Faulty parameters. No faulty parameters. और फॉल्टी पैरामीटर्स क्या होते हैं? देखो, फॉल्टी पैरामीटर्स ये होते हैं जब हम कोई ऐसा डिसीजन जो हमारे लिए काफी इंपॉर्टेंट है, उस डिसीजन को बिना प्रॉपरली सोचे समझे ले रहे हैं. दैट्स अ फॉल्टी पैरामीटर. दैट इज व्हाट? दैट्स अ फॉल्टी पैरामीटर. लाइक आपके एक दोस्त ने एक ऑप्शनल लिया और आपको रेकमेंड कर दिया दैट यू शुड ऑल्सो गो फॉर द सेम ऑप्शनल. You choose that optional not because you are comfortable with it, you like it, you want to read about it. You just choose that optional because someone has recommended it to you. This is a faulty parameter. This is a faulty parameter. Choosing an optional on the basis of what was the optional of last year's topper, faulty parameter है कि पिछले साल क्योंकि कोई एक पर्टिकुलर सब्जेक्ट से किसी इंडिविजुअल ने टॉप किया तो उसके बेसिस पर आपने भी वही ऑप्शनल चूज कर लिया बिकॉज यू फील दैट ओके इट इज गोइंग टू बी no it's something which you will be able to replicate. Faulty parameter है. इस तरह के irrational parameters will not be used while deciding for the optional. Okay, so this is what I mean when I say well informed and rational choice. Clear? At least this much is what you will do before you come to the decision. Okay, before you come to the decision, whichever optional you are choosing for, at least do what? At least take these things into account. At least take these things into account before choosing for that optional. Clear? Now we come to the next part of it, which is public administration as an optional. Okay, so what is the content of public administration as an optional? I will give you a brief idea. Okay, public administration. Now we come to the discussion of public administration. What is the content? What is the content? See, the first and the foremost thing that you have to understand, like if I ask you a question, for all those who are live here, if suppose I ask you a question, when you think of public administration as an optional, what comes to your mind? Yes, जब आप पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन एज एन ऑप्शनल के बारे में सोचते हो, आपके हिसाब से पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन का कंटेंट क्या है? व्हाट यू आर लाइकली टू रीड हियर? वहां पर आप क्या पढ़ने वाले हो? दिस इज माई क्वेश्चन टू यू all, for all of those who are live. If you have an idea what you think, you can mention that. Yes, who will answer this question? Who will answer this question? Okay, I am going to in details tell you about what are the misconceptions about public administration and what is the exact content. See, most of us, when we think of public administration, we always think that public administration optional is about reading of how the administration of India works, how the different offices like the office of cabinet secretary, chief secretary, district collector, superintendent of police, and so on, what are their responsibilities, what are their duties, what is the structure of police administration, what is the structure of general administration, what are the functions that they are performing, no, what are the important achievements of these offices. You think that आप ये public administration में पढ़ने वाले हो, and because this is something that this is something that we tend to we tend to be very motivated to study because you are aspiring to be a civil servant. So you will always have that curiosity to know what a civil servant does, है ना? आपकी ये क्यूरियोसिटी हमेशा रहेगी कि आप जानो कि सिविल सर्वेंट्स क्या काम करते हैं और किस तरीके से वो काम करते हैं. देयर इज नथिंग रॉन्ग विथ इट, बट द थिंग इज दैट द पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन पेपर does not only include that. Yes, we do study We do study that content, but it is a part of our public administration paper 2. That means when you are looking at the content of public administration, you have to look at it from two perspectives, paper 1 and paper 2. Paper 1 and paper 2. Okay. And when we talk about public administration paper 1, public administration paper 1 overlaps to a considerable extent with management. The paper 1 of public administration overlaps considerably with the management paper. What does that mean? What it means is that when it comes to those students who have commerce or management as their background, so if you have suppose pursued your master's in business administration, that is an MBA, or you have BBA, or someone who has appeared maybe in graduation from, no, you have done your graduation as BCom graduate, or you are an MCom graduate. That means all of you will have an edge. Why? Because it overlaps with the management topic. So for those students who are who have pursued this, you will find public administration doing what? You will find public administration to have an overlap. And this is what I also want to inform all those students who are even thinking about public administration as an optional. What you have to understand is that paper 1 of public administration is more management oriented. That means here in paper 1 we talk about organization. है ना, हम किस चीज की बात करते हैं और किस चीज को पढ़ते हैं? एक ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के बारे में हम पढ़ते हैं. We read about an organization and how the organization functions, what are the important variables, that affect organization. Because remember, organization is about humans, organization is about money or finances, and organization is about procedures and स्ट्रक्चर्स. यानी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में क्या इंपॉर्टेंट है? ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में इंपॉर्टेंट है जो वेरिएबल्स ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के एफिशिएंसी और उसके इफेक्टिवनेस को इंपैक्ट करता है, वो है ह्यूमंस. वी आर पार्ट ऑफ ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस, एंड व्हेन वी आर पार्ट ऑफ ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, आवर बिहेवियर इन द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन इन्फ्लुएंसेस how the organization, whether it's going to achieve efficiency or not. So that is the reason why when we are studying public administration paper 1, we do study impact of humans in an organization. So we study in details the human relations approach, the behavioral approach, etc. We do study that. That means we study how human behavior, what are the kind of behavior that is being performed in an organization. As humans, we are taking decisions, so how are decisions taken? We are communicating, so how is communication done? When we are a part of an organization, there is a phenomena of motivation, leadership. So how is motivation done? How is leadership? What are the types of leadership? All of this is what is the human dimension, and we study that as a part of public administration. Secondly, When we talk about money or finances, again, every organization requires adequate finances for effective and smooth functioning. अगर एक ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के पास appropriate availability of resources, पैसा नहीं है, the organization cannot function very well. The organization cannot function very well. And that is the reason why we also study what is called as, in both paper 1 as well as in paper 2, what we call as financial administration and financial management. So in paper 1, we study about the basics of how finances are important for an organization. We study about budget. We study about, the other aspects of finances. In paper 2, we study Indian finances. So the budgeting system that is followed in India, the people, the financial people that are there who are involved in the administration of the money aspect, like the Comptroller and Auditor General, the Comptroller General of Accounts, etc., etc. Similarly, we also study procedure and structure. So there is a view in public administration, the view of structure, the view of procedure. What is the structure of an organization? What is the importance of structure in an organization? There are scholars who consider that this is very, very important. So what is the importance of it? All of it, we do study that. That means it's more management oriented. It's what? It's more management oriented that we see. Similarly, when we are talking about public administration, what you have to understand is public administration, again in paper 1, public administration is considerably a new discipline. It's considerably a new discipline. So when you compare public administration to that of other optionals or other subjects like economics, physics, chemistry, etc., उनकी हिस्ट्री बहुत पुरानी है. Public administration's history is not as old. In fact, there is a very specific date, which is the year 1887. And we consider that the discipline of public administration was born in 1887. It was born in 1887. Now, when we say it was born in 1887, what does that mean? It means that there was a separate discipline of public administration was born in 1887, and we do not just study that, we also study how has it evolved. How has it evolved? That means public administration post 1887. What are the important factors? How was the discipline affected? What are the various factors that had affected it? What are the different events that have happened in public administration as a discipline since 1887 to the year 2000, or post 2000 as well? What are the specific events that have happened? That is a part of our, that is what we study here in the introduction topic. There are various thinkers, as I said, management thinkers like Taylor, Fayol, Weber, Chris Argyris, Douglas McGregor, etc., Maslow, Herzberg, Chester Bernard, Herbert Simon. There are number of thinkers who are, some of them are management thinkers, most of them are management thinkers. They are a part of our syllabus. We do study that as well. Similarly, we also study in paper 1 about public policies. Public policies. That means, how does the government form policies and what are the different stages of public policy? So how is policy formed, formulated, how is it implemented, how the monitoring or feedback mechanism work, how evaluation works, what is this policy cycle, what is the role of government, what is the role of other institutions? We study about that. We study about certain important things, developments called as development administration or development dynamics, and along with development dynamics, comparative public administration or CPA. Now, what you need to understand here is that these two topics, they are the very current ideas because they evolve post 1950s. So the Second World War ends, lot of countries become newly independent countries. They want to achieve development, and both comparative public administration and development dynamics, these are two topics where we see how this development as a concept has evolved. We read about a scholar called as F.W. Riggs and how he presents different models of his development. We do discuss that as well. That means what I want to clarify to all of you who are looking for public administration as an optional, and specifically those who belong to who belong to different fields and you want to take this optional, you should be very clear about the content of the optional. And the content of the optional paper 1 is very dynamic, it's very interesting as well. It's all about understanding. There is not much which you have to learn. If you understand things well, you are very likely, you will be very capable of writing answers with obviously some answer writing practice. You will be able to